Hi, I am David Morilla Cabello. I'm going to talk about our working collaboration between the robotics group in the University of Zaragoza and the Vision for Robotics Lab in ETH Zurich. We present a method to achieve efficient coverage planning for aerial teams in large-scale environments. The coverage of scenes using cameras is useful in many applications. It is needed to obtain 3D reconstructions and perform structural assessment, or in search and rescue scenarios, to acquire situational awareness and perform victim search. Using drones for this purpose is a good solution as they have great mobility in space. However, current aerial platforms require to plan manually over a prior map, which is not possible in new or changing scenarios. Also, they have low battery capabilities. Thus, it is important to perform automated efficient planning able to work in previously unknown environments. In certain applications that require extra efficiency, using a team of drones is very useful, but adds the problem of coordination between them. There are prior methods in planning for scene reconstructions that work online. However, they don't have any global knowledge and are only able to plan as they discover the environment. On the other hand, there are methods that perform offline planning. They first create a global prior of the scene with a reconnaissance flight and using photometric reconstruction, which is slow. Then they compute the remaining views to complete the model. The advantage is that they are able to plan globally. The multi-drone case is only studied by the online set of methods. They distribute the work among a team of drones for a given time of the reconstruction. However, due to their locality nature, a global workload distribution between the agents cannot be ensured. Now I will go into our proposal using this virtual environment as an example. First, inspired by offline methods, we acquire an initial map to obtain an insight of the overall structure of the scene. We assume overhead flights with down-looking cameras. As opposed to offline methods, we build a dense map online using depth completion, which takes a sparse depth input coming from a slant system or a LiDAR and estimates per pixel depth on the image. We then introduce the depth estimates to an ESDF map. We analyze the map to find surfaces that were poorly observed due to non-frontal observations during the reconnaissance flights, which corresponds to the red vertical and tilted surfaces in our case. We also detect regions that were not observed, shown in blue, but can be observed from a different view as they are accessible from the free space. We cluster both regions in a way that can be observed in a similar way. This means that they are grouped in space and have similar normal vectors. This is a proposed algorithm based on DB-scan that we term perception-aware clustering. On the right, you can see a result on the clustering where clusters are represented with different colors. Thanks to the perception-aware clustering, we can now generate trajectories to observe the whole cluster in a straight line path that can be traversed at high speed. These are what we call sweeps. We use the average normal of the cluster as the observation direction. Then, the drone traverses the cluster following its main axis of inertia, which is the red dot line on the right. The observation distance is computed so the camera field of view can capture the whole cluster. It is worth noticing that the observation direction of the cluster is orthogonal to the travel direction of the sweep. That's why we use a monocular camera mounted on a gimbal for observation and a stereo pair for navigation. To compute global paths for each of the drones to traverse all these sweeps, we formulate the problem as a min-max vehicle routing problem. The vehicle routing problem minimizes the total execution time of the mission. This also results in balancing the workload between the drones. Finally, we use a local planner based on ESDF maps to perform obstacle avoidance and to smoothen the paths. To validate our pipeline, we perform experiments in photorealistic scenarios of different size. We run the method to obtain the completion time. Then, using the images gathered during the flights, we build offline a 3D reconstruction of the scene in order to assess the percentage of coverage obtained. We compare the results with only performing reconnaissance flights and the method of Compis et al. If we only use the images captured during the reconnaissance flights, we can observe a large amount of area. However, this is not enough to obtain good coverage due to bad observations of vertical surfaces resulting in bad quality reconstructions or occluded regions not being observed. Now let's see the performance of our whole pipeline. First, you can see that the planning time is negligible compared to the total mission execution, which allows to plan on site in few seconds right after the reconnaissance flights. The time comparison between the single drone and the multi-drone cases also show that our method can be applied to several drones to increase its efficiency. In terms of coverage, we achieve a coverage over 95% after the execution of our pipeline. In these figures, you can see the 3D reconstructions that we obtained. The covered points are colored in green and the not covered points in red. We compared our method with the planning method of Compis et al. In these figures, you can see the amount of coverage achieved after running both methods for the same time. We obtain faster coverage in every case. This is mainly due to the difference when approaching drone dynamics. The reiterative planning produces stop-and-go motions, while we plan over the global structure of the scene using long sweeps. Additionally, the planner tends to perform revisiting in order to obtain thorough coverage of small regions with difficult accessibility. An example of this behavior can be observed on the window of the rightmost scene. In our case, we focus on obtaining global coverage of the scene as efficiently as possible. The results are consistent for the case of using a single drone and multiple drones, and the difference increases with the size of the map. From left to right, you can see that our method can scale better in large environments. In conclusion, we present a method that leverages global information from an initial map to perform efficient planning with sweeps and coordinate a team of drones, which is able to cover large scenes fast. As future work, it would be interesting to assess the coverage online or apply the method to a heterogeneous robot team. Thank you for your attention. I invite you to discover more about our work and results in the paper.